The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today on the panel is Thomas Sanjurjo. Hey, Thomas.
Hey, Dom.
So before we get into today's topic, I just want to briefly take a moment, a little self-indulgence here. This is episode 300 of Secrets of Technology. We've been doing the show for 6 years now, pretty consistently. We've had a few hiccups here and there. When my house was a disaster area, there was a period of time where we couldn't do some recording or recorded without me, which I'm grateful for. But in general, we've been going for 6 years now for 300 episodes. And so I'm really grateful, most of all to the listeners, because, well, I mean, if it weren't for you, we wouldn't be doing this. We just hang out in Discord and talk about this stuff. So we're very grateful to everyone. And so we have a pretty cool show planned. I think they're always cool, but this is a little special approach this time, where we're going to talk about, kind of take a deep dive into a question that we've been hovering around for probably the last year or two on the show. It keeps coming up. And so we want to really kind of dive into this. And it's really, as we put it, the erosion of digital ownership and the concomitant consumer trust. There are these twin problems that we're approaching. Is we don't own anything anymore. It used to be you didn't own your software. Now you don't even own your hardware anymore.
Right.
And meanwhile, the tech companies keep promising the world and selling stuff to us based on those promises and then failing to deliver. So these are pretty much, I feel like, the twin pillars of what's wrong in tech right now. And so that's what we're going to dive into. There's the AI stuff and all that other stuff that's coming, and those might become a third pillar. But I think these are the two that we've got right now. So, Thomas, this was kind of your idea, at least the germ of the idea that we've developed into the outline. But do you want to say anything to start with on the topic?
Well, I'll say where it comes from, because I think this was really disappointing to me, and it's the ownership of physical products has always been something that you can kind of rely on the fact that you own your physical product. And I have always been against slippery slope arguments about ownership and products and things like that. But when all of these products started having to phone home, they started having to have an internet connection to even function. A lot of people said they didn't want that because it means that the company has too much control over whatever. And, I kind of pushed back against that for a long while. And then a company that I would consider myself very, very devoted to, which is Nintendo, have had a Nintendo since the very first availability of Nintendo in the US, and have owned one of their devices ever since, and many games on them too. Went and updated their terms and license agreements to basically make it so that they own your, not even basically, that's not even basically, it's written into the actual license agreement that they own your product and you are leasing it from them. So if you have a Switch or a Switch 2, Nintendo owns those products and you are leasing the right to use those products. And it's actually worded that way in the license for clarity. Like it says, for clarity, this is the way it is. So I was so upset by that. And it really made me just realize that in this age where everything connects back and everything phones home, we don't get to own anything. We don't get to own anything anymore. And we end up forking over a lot of money for some of this stuff for the company to just be able to say, oh, you no longer have the right to use it. And the really concerning part there is a lot of people will push back against that and say, well, it's only if you're doing something inappropriate with it, like if you're pirating or if you're, but more and more and more, we're seeing that people who have accounts on big companies like YouTube, Twitch, things like that, they get banned for nothing. Nobody even put a strike against them. It's just something happened and it glitched in the software. So it's not even they were doing anything remotely wrong. It was just a glitch and they got banned from it. So it's upsetting to me. It's upsetting to me that I can't actually own these things and do what I want with them.
Right. Yeah. So that's what we want to kind of delve into is the erosion of the ability of the person laying out the money to get value from what we're laying the money out for.
Mm-hmm.
And, more and more the customer is being treated like, cattle, there's very little respect for the customer. And I want to say customer, I don't want to say user or consumer, because those are functional. Customer is relational. And we have these companies have a relationship with us as we are exchanging cash for goods and services, and we have a right based on that. That's how our society functions and our economy functions. So I'm not simply here to consume what they shovel out. I'm not here to just use what they allow me to use. I'm a customer. I have a right to the things that I've purchased. We're here to kind of talk about the rights that we have and maybe what we should be protecting as a society. Let's start on the other side of the ledger here, which is the overpromising that we're seeing a lot of. A lot of companies, and this isn't a new thing, they promise the world, and some companies are more notorious at this than others. They promise the world, and they kind of and promising the world is nothing new, but they kind of get us to buy things based on these promise. The promise that after you've bought this, at some point down the line, these features will be made available to you because you've purchased this thing now.
Right.
And that's a problem. So some examples, and one of the biggest offenders in this realm is Google, right? I mean, we just had Google I/O. We'll talk more about the Google I/O next week, on next week's show. So, stick around for that, folks, when we get to that. But, Google has often promises things. How many years have they been promising like the AI agent that will go out on the internet now? You might say, well, Google doesn't make you buy that ahead of time. Although if you're a Pixel owner, Android user, sometimes you're buying things based on that.
Yeah, you're getting in there.
Yeah. But one example I just want to throw there is, remember Google Stadia? That was I remember that was actually one of the first things we talked about back in 2019 when the show started. It was all this promise. So, the promise was you would not need a console. You wouldn't need special hardware, any computer that can connect to the internet. You'll have instant game streaming. You'll be able to play AAA games, 4K streaming. It was all this excitement. And then they launched. So that was announced in March in 2018. It launched in November, and all this stuff was missing. There was no achievements, no 4K streaming, no family sharing. And then by 2020, they're starting to shut down pieces of it. And 2023, January 2033, they shut it down. Again, like everything Google does. It feels like.
I remember Google Plus back when we had a pretty thriving community back on Google Plus that we were all hanging out, and that's just where we met. I think a lot of the people that are on the podcasts were from meetings that we had in Google Plus.
Yeah, Google Circles.
Google's like the toddler of the toddler of the tech world, where they pick something up, they get really interested in it, they get super excited about it, and then they just throw it away and forget about it.
Right. Not realizing that people are building, their not their lives around it, but they're like, some people build businesses around these things. I remember, Google's pretty much single-handedly killed blogs when they shut down Google Reader. Other services kind of popped up afterward, but it just shoved a stake into the heart of thriving blogging communities. And right around the time that social media was coming, and right around the time that Google Plus was coming up. I mean, I think that was one of the reasons they shut Google Reader down, was to drive people to a service that they would eventually shut down. So, yeah.
Well, and I think the interesting thing too is, and this really does have an effect, because I was one of the Google Play, the music specifically. So the Google Music set that they put up, and it moved to Play, and then it got moved to YouTube, and it was a mess. It was an absolute mess. I had bought a bunch of music on there. I had uploaded my whole library on there and was depending on it for digital access, and then had bought a bunch of music on there as well. And it ended up being something that they just kind of tossed aside, and they said, well, you can keep it if you want to. And then you had to jump through a bunch of hoops to download the stuff. It was really kind of ridiculous. They didn't provide the platform offboarding to do that. You had to do it through third-party stuff. And it's really frustrating because it's like they promised that it was something that they were going to do, and then they found a better model, I guess, in YouTube Music, and so then just decided to drop it and made you move to a subscription with YouTube Music that wasn't accessible, and it wasn't even similar. It wasn't even comparable to the experience that you had in Google Music, which was a lot more open and available to mix your music in with music that you were listening to from other, from the actual downloads and things like that.
Right.
So it was a great concept. It was really neat. I was bought in, and then when they shut down, there was just nowhere to go to really retrieve my information, to have my things back that I had put on there. And I actually lost an album that I'll never get another copy of, because I had uploaded it on there and the CD had been lost. And it was by a minor artist that nobody knows about, that I've tried to look up so many times since, because I really miss the album. And I just don't have it anymore. I don't have a digital copy of it anymore.
What it does is it burns trust. People are so jaded now about tech companies, and that's why we end up with people thinking that my phone is listening to me, and Amazon, I won't get an Amazon Echo because I know they're listening to me. They're tracking my movements. Well, they may or may not be. They're probably not. But the reason people think that is because of how abusive the relationship is with these companies. People just don't trust these companies anymore. They don't trust them to stick around. We talked about, the problems with smart homes last week. This is 2 weeks in a row where we're kind of complaining about things, but it's okay. Well, I trust you folks. It's summer's coming. We're going to be very happy, and it's going to be really cool. So, in the next few weeks, we'll talk about all the cool things that are coming. So, but part of the reason people don't trust smart homes is because it's the broken promises, the distrust. So, that's part of it. Here's another example of, just to show you that we're being even-handed here, apart from Google, Apple has recently been famously in the news for over-promising and under-delivering. They had last year, WWDC, huge splash for their AI Apple Intelligence, which is, come on, Apple. We know you didn't invent the smartphone. You just made it better. That's true. Okay. But, Apple Intelligence. But they would promise Siri was going to be so much better. Not you. And the things lit up when I said the name. And, it's going to have all these autonomous features, going to be able to it's coming, though. It'll be like later this year. And it turns out when they're making those promises on the WWDC stage, they knew they didn't have a product to deliver. In the fall, when they announced the new phones, they knew that they couldn't deliver with it. They ran ads with this showing features that didn't exist, and they knew weren't even close. And I mean, that is bad. I mean, that is almost fraud level bad. It really, I'm sure there is some class action law firm out there readying a lawsuit, or if they haven't already done it, to sue Apple for, fraudulent and I bought a phone based on your promises sort of nonsense. And we'll all get it $1.95 in 7 years, and the lawyers will get $10 million. But, it's just, they, even like Apple, who is, I think regardless of my Apple fanboyism, it is, objectively by actual measure, one of the most trusted brands in the world. People trust Apple for good or for ill. And they fell in the same trap of over promising and not delivering, and using these promises to push hardware upgrades that maybe, some people didn't need, to get.
Well, and I think that's the really disappointing part. And the other side of it too is and I've had a couple of companies that I've gotten involved with the promise that when we get enough users, these are our things. So they've started running their businesses almost like Kickstarters, where there's these like push goals, and so you're like, oh, that sounds great, and I feel like everybody's going to use this, so let me hop on board, and then they'll meet those numbers and just never deliver. and already they're moving on to the next thing that they thought was interesting or that they're going to get a quick buck from. And that to me, it's really, I mean, it's the old man in me maybe at this point, but I'm getting right. But I'm getting to the point where it's like, I don't want to jump on the new wave of anything because it doesn't feel like it's going anywhere.
Some of these companies that are doing these Kickstarter, like, promising you the world, if only you get on board now. I know with a moral certitude, but not necessarily fact, some of them are doing it so that they can get acquired. Like they have no intention of delivering these things, these features or whatever. But if they can build a big enough base of users, some VC or some, bigger company like a Google will come in and throw some millions at them and they'll be rich and they'll never have to worry about it again. And I feel like this some of that is in there as well. This very cynical money grab sort of attitude. But speaking of the Kickstarter attitude, I really kind of dislike how many tech gadget companies are using actual Kickstarter to sell products. Like, look, just sell a product. It's basically pre-sales, right? Well, they're selling me, if you get in on the Kickstarter, then when we launch the product, you'll get one early. Just sell the product. Just sell it.
Spend a little bit of money on marketing, guys. Come on. If you're concerned about the viability of the product, put it in front of some boards.
Focus group it. It's not like people didn't used to sell products before, and these are established companies. Like, I'm calling out Anchor on this one. They do this a lot. Where they have a new product and they throw it up on on Kickstarter, and then you wait, and that's the other thing is with Kickstarter, you don't necessarily get it when they promise it, when they it doesn't get delivered then, and it's just it becomes, and I've shelled out hundreds of dollars, maybe in some cases, I mean maybe not, maybe less, but I shell out a chunk of money that I don't have now. It's not in my pocket. Well, no, let me rephrase. They don't usually bill you until a launch date. So, okay. Yeah. So with the Kickstarter, I'll retract that part. With a pre-sale, you do end up putting money out. Whereas with Kickstarter, you don't. So maybe in that case, it's maybe a little better, but nevertheless, it's part of the promising. It's the hype.
Yeah.
Let me go to a third example. Tesla's full self-driving. So Elon Musk has been claiming since 2016 that Tesla would be fully self-driving next year, quote unquote. Still not fully self-driving in 2025. So in 2016, he said all new Teslas have the hardware needed for full self-driving. In 2019, they began to sell full self-driving as a $6,000 add-on. It's now more than $15,000 for if you buy a car now. In 2025, it's still in beta, requires constant driver supervision, still what's called SAE level 2, which is the same as GM Super Cruise. It's not really autonomous self-driving. And so basically for the past nearly 10 years, for the past decade, they've been selling a feature that doesn't really exist and left consumers with the bill for not, that's $6,000 that someone spent 10 years ago. They're probably on another car by now. And on top of it, you can't sell a Tesla that you've paid $6,000 or $15,000 for full self-driving. If you sell that car to someone else, the full self-driving doesn't go with it. Right. That new owner has to buy it again.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's wild.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other can of worms that we could get into, is just the idea of, transferring subscriptions on things that are physical objects that you've activated the thing.
Right.
But yeah, this one's weird because I really do feel like with some of these groups, you have a front guy that's a dreamer that is like pixie dust and they're ready to go, and that's what they want, and they just feel like it's going to happen. It's going to happen. We'll catch up. I'll say it'll happen and we'll catch up. And then, the reality sets in, the engineers, the Wozniaks. It's the Jobs versus the Wozniak, right? Where the Jobs says, we can do this. And the Wozniak's like, I'm
going to spend every weekend in my garage for the next year, aren't I?
Right. And so that's where I feel like Musk with Tesla is, because Musk keeps promising all of these huge things, and I think we're still in really early stages of the Starlink stuff. And while a lot of the results that it's providing are promising, it's not going to reach the internet for everyone, standard that is kind of been placed out there early on in the process. And so much of it is like this kind of mentality that tech is always increasing, is always speedily increasing. Like the amount of technology that we have and the ability with technology that we have is always just leaps and bounds ahead. And I think we've gotten so used to, as consumers, that of seeing that, seeing where we came from the 90s with, these computers that had black screens with green letters on them, up to today where, everything's got a computer in it and it's all amazing. We've gotten used to the speed that everything's taking. So when somebody says, oh, by this point next year, it'll be this, we believe them because, I guess, if you're
always been that
close.
Way.
Yeah. But we really are reaching a precipice where we've come to the top level of some of the things that tech is able to deliver. And, computers can only get so small. There's only so much space between an atom and its neighbor.
We're meeting angstrom level problems here.
Like
the space between atoms of smallness. Yeah.
So that's where you've got to really you've got to really pay attention, not just to the big claims, but to the current claims and the everyday claims. Like what is this company that's promising this thing doing right now? And what's their track record in delivery? Like if they promise a thing, does it get delivered, or is it just or does it come out not ever meet the expectations and then really quickly?
Yes. Well, and the other thing too is that kind of magical thinking of, we're always overpromising infects other parts of society too. And because you see it especially in legislatures, right? We need to pass a law to require tech to do this. Like, you can't pass a law to require tech to do a thing, just like as if the mere passage of a law, like all things are possible if you can imagine them. That's sort of the way we do things. And so you have legislators trying to pass a law that require, I don't know, cell phones to magically turn off when you touch them while you're driving a car. And it's like, I mean, what? You can't just legislate that. That requires a whole other level of stuff, or requiring that all cell phones should have the same kind of connector and have removable batteries. And okay, that has consequences when you do that.
Right.
But what's that's evidence of, they've absorbed the magical thinking, the hype speak of the visionaries, whether it's Jobs or Musk or whoever it is. From whatever tech company, they're kind of responsible for that by their visionary speak.
Right.
So but they may, the visionaries, the companies themselves may not be the only ones responsible. What do you think influencers, YouTubers and the tech press, how much responsibility do they have for amplifying the hype? Because very often when these things get put out there by these companies, we need views, we need clicks, and so we, and we show it all. I mean, maybe we're a little guilty of that. Whenever there's a Google I/O or Apple WWDC, we have an episode where we talk about it. What do you think? I mean, how much responsibility do we have?
Well, I think some of it is you need to find influencers that have a balanced view. So there are some influencers out there that are pretty good about pros and cons. They talk about some of the other things that are coming out. I'm always cautious with influencers that got a product for free and what they say about it, because no matter how balanced they are, if they got a product for free, they're going to be talking about it positively because it's now theirs and they get to,
right. I mean, even the most ethical of journalists got the product for free. You know what I mean? That there's still
exactly.
I mean, that's why we have to have disclosure when you get something, because even if even if you are a rock solid, as you still got something for free. Or at least you even got to use it for free ahead of other people. So, yeah, I agree with that.
And some of it too is like, I think a lot of us, especially in the tech influence and tech media space right now, grew up on Star Trek and, this really just sense of the magnificent tomorrow. Kind of played into our conversation last week about about the smart homes too.
Yes,
we grew up with these dreams of things getting better, and we've seen a lot of times where something has been promised and it's been delivered on, and it's been amazing. And so we have a lot of hope for these kind of things, and I don't want us all to become super jaded about where tech is headed, but I feel like two things are happening. One, there aren't as many visionaries in leadership roles anymore. Most of these companies have gotten to the point where they are very solid corporate machines that are running. Mm-hmm. And so there's not Steve Jobs was a very unique figure. Google had a couple of different leaders that really pushed the boundaries of what they were capable of by casting that vision. And you just don't have many of those guys anymore. There's just really not a vision pushing them forward. And so when we review these things on the tech stage, we're getting the gloss, like the full marketing force, and getting past that marketing force is challenging. And I think what we could do to help companies, and this is honestly kind of a pushback that we could all engage in, is really start asking them, what's the vision? Like, I know you want to sell me another phone. What's your vision for this phone? Like, why is this different? Why is this not just the next generation of the thing that you've already given me? And demanding that level of excitement and interest and push, but with real results. And being very disappointed and moving off of a thing or avoiding the newest version if it doesn't deliver.
Is this the newest iPhone or the newest Pixel because your balance sheet requires a new phone to be sold this year to please the stockholders? Or is it genuinely that much of an improvement?
Exactly.
Because a lot of these products are becoming very mature. There's not a lot of space for improvement left. And so I think that's another part of the problem is there isn't a lot of space these products are really very good. These smartphones are great. And we've sort of, the next leap is we haven't made it yet. We haven't got to holographic screens or, whatever it is. Like,
that's what I was going to say. So, it's like, deliver me a holographic screen, man. And I'm in.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the Vision Pro or the other, Leo Laporte calls them nerd helmets. Like, we're not quite at the augmented reality goggle thing where just looks like glasses that you wear and it's augmented reality. We're not quite there yet. So we're pushing other stuff. To get there, we need you to keep buying this stuff that we're making now. I mean, there's sort of that.
Yeah.
And part of it, I want to go back to something you said before. Part of it, the reason why we have the overhype and we buy into the hype is because they have delivered on so much. I mean, the fact is, as we've kind of pointed out several times, where we are today technologically over 20 and 30 years ago is incredibly advanced. I mean, it's wild how amazing it is. You got to stop and think of how amazing it is to have the world in your pocket. You can be connected to anyone in the world from almost anywhere with the device in your pocket. I still go back to my honeymoon, which was 20 years ago, driving my wife through Nova Scotia and talking to her about how there will be a time not too long in the future where we'll be able to get internet connection wherever we go. Nova Scotia had like no cell phone coverage anywhere in the middle of Nova Scotia. And it was like how we'll be able to be online and we'll be like these long distance connections and we'll be connected to people. And little did I know that there would become, you never see the bad of it, which is you're always online and staring at your phone. But nevertheless, we have come so far, and that's kind of what feeds into our disappointment at the overhype.
Yeah. And I think we really need to let our pocketbooks speak to that disappointment. And that's and it's challenging. It's a real challenge, because if you're 2 or 3 generations back on an iPhone, you're having trouble already because you don't have enough space on your device to keep the updates and all of your photos and all of the other stuff. So it ends up costing you something significant, some significant convenience, some significant effort to maintain older tech. When, I mean, the difference between a 2 generations ago iPhone and a current iPhone, it's really not that much. Like, there's just not much there.
Yeah. I have to give Apple credit, though, and I think probably Google as well. They maintain updates for their phones for a long time. They like, if you have a 2020 Silicon Mac, an M1 Mac, that thing is still rock solid, fast, good computer. Same thing with iPhones. Like, my kids are rocking 5-6-year-old iPhones without any problems. Still getting the latest updates. So that's good. But that should also mean you shouldn't, unless there's a reason, you shouldn't feel the need to upgrade right away whenever there's a new device. Says the guy who's probably going to buy an iPhone this fall. But nevertheless, I don't buy a new one every year. I do try to hold off. I want to transition to talking about the ownership, because when you just said, like, consumers or customers, we need to talk with our wallets. That I have a concrete example that I've mentioned before that I want to talk about again after I take a quick break, because I do want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Technology, including Ronald R., Joseph, Michelle L., Caitlin F., and Matthew D. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Technology and all the shows at StarQuest, and you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Stop giving all your money to those overhyping tech companies. Give a little to a nice nonprofit that could help you with that. Anyway, so let's talk about licensing versus ownership, the ownership problem. Do we actually own any of our digital products anymore? So, just to introduce it, the concept. We live in a world where you can pay $70,000 for a car, $2,000 for a laptop, or $30 for a video game and still not actually own it. You're just licensing access. In many cases, the company that sold it to you can restrict it, take it away, or disable features. So let's, get into what that means for us. You mentioned the Nintendo problem. I teased this before the break, but I mentioned before how Amazon recently talked about, they changed their wording on their website about when you're licensing books, you're not buying books from them. If you buy an ebook from them and I said, that's it. I'm not going to buy any more Kindle ebooks. So now I just buy them from Kobo, which still allows me, they don't want me to, but the system still lets me strip them of their DRM and store them as a backup on my computer. And I feel no compunction about doing that, because I have laid down cash. If I laid down that cash and got a physical book in my hand, I could do with it what I wanted. I could photocopy it and put it in my files. I could shred it or whatever. I want to have that same right when I lay out cash for the book that's just in the digital form. And so I'm gonna strip it, back it up, put it on a drive. I'm not going to distribute it. That's not. I'm going to respect the author in that case. But I'm not gonna give Amazon my money for these books anymore, because I want to send a message. My little protest may not get noticed, but if enough of us do it, that's the thing.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's what it is that we really need to do not let I'm only one tiny fish in the pond get you to stop your protest, because it does take effort. And this is the thing to remember, is that it takes effort on your part, because you make that change. Or if you're a person who strips DRMs anyway, you probably are used to putting in a little bit of effort for it. But that's when you do that, you might be just one person doing it, but if you talk to 5 people and get them to do it, and then they talk to 5 people and get them to do it, very quickly it can get to a point where it gets noticed. And
a few thousand people on a podcast.
Right. Well, exactly. That's what I was saying. Any platform you have, definitely use that to talk about these things, because it's important for us to feel empowered as customers. And I'm going to use that same term that you're going to use there, because I think it's important. And for us to not just be consumers, to not just let these companies treat us like a number that is, going to buy stuff from them anyway, because there is no other market in town, because they've beaten them all off and, can undercut them dramatically until they can then go draconian on us and claim ownership. Yeah.
We can look at this idea, like, where did this idea that we don't buy, software or hardware anymore begin? Like, I mean, years ago, even when you would go into a CompUSA and buy a box with a disc in it, it still had a user license agreement that was a license agreement, wasn't ownership. Sure. I mean, that idea is probably 40 years old or more at this point. And even then it's a little, I find that a little murky to, because the concept of ownership of a digital product, that's kind of the issue here. Is we used to own physical things, right? It used to be back in the day, if you, even like an intellectual exercise, like a book, you wrote a book, you produced a physical object. That was your book. You owned that book and you owned the contents of those pages. But with a digital product, you have a disc, and on that disc are bits that, when arranged in a particular way, constitute a software. And that became trickier. And so we had to figure out what does that mean? If they sell that copy to you, well, we used to be able to just hand that, sell that disc to somebody else, and now someone else owns it. But what if you copied that disc and gave it to somebody else? Well, then you're not, then the original guy would only ever sell one copy, and then never another copy, right? That would be the problem. Although shareware owners figured out how to deal with that, but that's a whole other, that's an old argument. But we've gotten to the point now where we're not just, paying once for a license. Now they want us to pay and pay and pay, because somebody, and probably Adobe, you could lay it at their doorstep, came up with the idea of subscription. Now we subscribe to Creative Cloud instead of buying it every time they upgrade it. And the promise was interesting. Look, you could spend $700 every 2 years to upgrade, or $700 or whatever the upgrade fee was, maybe $350 every couple of years when we push out a big feature release, or you just subscribe and pay every month, and then you get, new features all the time. We'll be pushing them at you. You just come automatically. Now, it has basically kind of not been that. Now it's about once a year you get a new version of the, a major new version that, that has bug fixes all the time, but major features about once a year. But now we're paying on a regular basis. And now a new thing came out from Adobe. I don't know if you saw this. They're now requiring some Creative Cloud subscriptions to upgrade to their AI generative Creative Cloud Pro. So you have to take it. So it's going to go from $60 a month to $60 a month to $70 a month, or $780 a year is going to be the end price. And that's going to give you the ability to have the AI tools like generate fill and monthly credits for the premium generative things and all this other stuff. And it's like, well, if you don't want that, you can go for the lower program that doesn't have things, but then you're going to lose features. It's death by a thousand cuts, right? Yeah. It's what are you going to do? You because the problem is if you say, I'm not going to buy Photoshop anymore, I'm not going to subscribe anymore, you lose access to your files, to the stuff you've created, because it can only be opened in Photoshop.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing that's really disappointing to me, is that you can't freeze a version of the software that you then own, right? That you can keep using. Yeah.
It used to be you had an old version of Photoshop and you just stayed on it as long as it ran on whatever operating system you had. you could run it for years and years and years. You could have the same operating system, an old computer, and never upgrade either, and run it forever.
Right.
But you can't do that anymore.
Yeah. And the sad thing about it is, like, I really do feel like Photoshop's a great example, because Photoshop, I think before they even hit the subscription model, had really hit the pinnacle of what a graphics editing program was. And the subscription model just kind of, like, it adds features, but they're
refinements. They're not major features.
Exactly. There's not much left to do in the digital imaging space.
I mean, I'll give you an example. Like, there's like when you want to select items in the, in an image, right? It used to be had to be very laboriously. Now it's smarter about it. You just select subject, and you can, or select sky. And so it's refined some of those features, which is good, but those are refinements. They're not new features, really, are they?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's just improvements on what already existed. And a lot of those things you can get in open source software. So there's open source alternatives that are doing a great job at keeping up with the technology that's required for image editing. And really, they do just as good a job. And unless you are in like a sweatshop having to crank out images nonstop, you're going to get just as much use out of them. It'll take you a little while to get used to the interface, because it's different enough, but it's mostly the same in the sense that you can pick it up in a couple of weeks and be back to your regular workflow doing whatever you do. And then the other sad thing about it too is, like, well, anything that they are adding into the program might be good for a corporate environment where, you need to do stuff because you've got a whole team of people working on graphics. But as an individual paying for it, it's like, I don't even use 3/4 of the features that you're editing. Right. Or if you make a big release and it's not my thing, why am I paying you for the new release if I don't use any of the new things that you released for me?
Right. Under the old model, I could say, oh, there's nothing in this new update that's really for me, so I'll just wait to the next one.
Exactly. So
we at SQVM, we have a nonprofit license, which is heavily discounted. So I use Creative Cloud for a lot of things we do. But if I didn't have that, I'd be, instead of using Premiere, I'd be using DaVinci Resolve, which is free. I'd be using Pixelmator Pro instead of Photoshop. I mean, there are alternatives out there, and non-subscription alternatives.
Right.
It's the standard, right? It's just, you're going to Photoshop something, or files get traded around. They're in that format. So it becomes easy to just go with it. But what happens is the other competitors say, I want some of that Creative Cloud money. I want to start doing that. And then you eventually don't have anybody where you can just go and throw some cash on the barrelhead and have a product. Right. Now it's everything subscription.
And from a developer's standpoint, so from working for a company that's doing development actively on a product, I get the subscription model. Like, I totally understand it. You want to keep providing support. You want to keep improving the product, but you really need a strong impetus that says the product is going to get dramatically better. And that's why I need to buy into the subscription model, because as these things are coming out that I need access to, I'm going to be able to provide, you're going to be able to provide them, and I'm paying for your developers to develop them. Whereas
I really feel like
it just feels like it's stagnating,
Yes. I really feel like too, though, that like a lot of these need to have, like, sure, we have a subscription for those who need a constantly updating, constantly on the edge, bleeding edge. But like, there should be a boxed model, like a boxed software model for those who don't need to be always on the most advanced, and like Office was like that for a long time. You could get 365, pay a monthly fee, and you have all those Office 365 features, or you could still get the old, Microsoft Office in a box thing. It wasn't literally in a box, but you download, non-subscription license. But even they're getting rid of that now. Now they're really pushing people to the subscription because that's where the cash is. And they don't really care if you don't, like, they don't care about the customers who don't need constant upgrades. I mean, Office is an example of a very mature software that
Right.
there no new features are needed. Word, Excel, they do all the things already. There's nothing. Exactly. I can't imagine anything new either of those need to do, or PowerPoint. But
don't bring back Clippy. Do not bring back Clippy.
Best thing they ever did was get rid of Clippy. But that's the problem for them is then how do we continue to sell Office? Because we've sold everyone has Office, so we need to sell subscriptions.
Yeah,
but who is that good for? Not for us. It's good for them.
No, it's good for them. And I think the other thing too is the predictability of a subscription is really nice. It's really nice to say, well, we know we have this many subscribers and that they're going to stay subscribed for this long, so we have this much monthly income, right? And rather than having to predict, are we going to sell this many units this time? What's going to sell the units and move the units off the shelf in the next few months or whatever.
And like we said, it's not just software, it's also hardware. We've talked with our friend the farmer Matthew about John Deere and how farmers are barred from repairing their own John Deere tractors due to software locks and the DMCA protections. BMW and Tesla have I mentioned the Tesla thing about the autopilot not transferring to used Teslas. BMW, we famously mocked them for selling subscriptions to heated seats, which seems the ultimate in stupid subscriptions. I mean, there's things like that. Digital media, we talked about books, but even movies, I used to buy movies in iTunes, in the past, but now I'm like, I'll just rent it. Instead of spending $16, because who knows if I'll own that in the future, they could pull it, if it's not already on Disney Plus or Amazon, where I can Netflix, whatever, where I can watch it for the price of the subscription I already have, then I'll rent it and, for a few bucks and then just be done with it. I don't have a problem with that as much because I grew up in the Blockbuster era. So I'm used to renting movies, and being able to watch them a couple times or once and having to return it.
I was thinking the same thing though, and the only reason I would buy a movie is because I'll look at it and I'll go, yeah, I'm definitely going to watch that 4 times. So I'm just going to go ahead and shell it out to purchase it.
Or it was in the bin where they were getting rid of them, because here, kids, I'll tell you the story. So when video stores when we were kids, a new movie would come out on video. And they'd get 30 copies because there was such high demand for it. Well, after the initial demand's gone, they don't need 30 copies; they need 2. And so they sell all the rest of them cheap in the remainders bin, the bargain bin, for a few bucks. Get a little bit of money back from it. So that's what it used to be like. But now we don't buy music; we subscribe to it. And I see it's this. Good and bad. I love having access to every single thing that millions of songs at my fingertips. I can listen to anything that's been recorded practically, which is better than it used to be because I don't have to buy every time I want to listen to music, I have to buy it. On the other hand, if I fail to pay for my Apple One subscription next month, all my playlists go away. Everything goes away. And because I don't own any of that, that's a little bit concerning.
Or the opposite of that concern is, well, you let your subscription lapse, but when you come back, everything's still there. Which is a little bit of a different concern where you're like, okay, so
my data doesn't go away.
My data doesn't go away. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, that's the other half of it. Yeah. So there was a story. I guess I didn't save it, but about a guy who bought a movie on, I think, Amazon Prime. He wasn't in the States, or maybe he moved out of the States, and they pulled it from his library and wouldn't refund him the money for it. Sorry, it's just not available in your location. Okay, then give me my money back because you sold me a thing.
Give me the rights to the thing that is the equivalent thing in my region.
Give me a credit then. I mean, what does it cost you anything to give me a credit on another movie? It doesn't. You've already have the money. Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is crazy. So what can we do? I don't want to just end this as a rant. What should we do? So we've talked about being a skeptical, again, not consumer, customer, right? Don't take the marketing at face value. Look for, real world reviews before buying, right? This is on the overhyped stuff. Trusted reviewers, not just YouTubers looking for clicks, and even the biggest YouTubers have fallen for the hype in the past. You got to find the people who are trustworthy. Know what you really own. Are you buying or are you licensing? If you buy that Nintendo Switch 2, are you really buying it, or are you just being given a license to use it from Nintendo, which is apparently the case? Yeah. So instead, support true ownership. So buy products from companies that support right to repair. Apple famously has not been great in that realm. A lot of those companies are, but the right to be able to take your device and fix it, replace parts, mod it if you want to. Raspberry Pi has been really great about that. Like the Raspberry and the various other system on a chip folks, or system on a board. Offline use, so you don't need the internet in order to use it. You can take your game console out into the woods and play to your heart's content without an internet connection. So
and app availability too is one that's really kind of funny. Like, you don't think about it, but make sure that wherever you can, if you are limited on your use, make sure that you have the app available anywhere that you need to use it.
Right. Yes. Buy things when possible instead of subscribing. Sometimes you don't have a choice, but if you can buy it, right? Audit your subscriptions. This is something I do. I keep a spreadsheet of all the things I subscribe to: software, magazines, streaming services, everything. Everything goes. If there's a monthly or annual fee, it goes in the spreadsheet, and I look at that every year. I go through it and say, what am I paying money for? Oh my gosh, I haven't looked at that in 6 months. Get rid of it. Go through, keep track, because I can't imagine how many billions of dollars a year are paid out by individuals for things that they don't use anymore.
Right.
Potentially hundreds of dollars from any individual.
Oh, I don't doubt it. I mean, there's even ads based around it, right? Where it's like one of the money programs where you can put your subscriptions in, and then it tells you what you're overspending on. Yes,
right. Yeah, there are programs out there that will look at your bank statement and your credit card statements and tell you what you may not be using and that sort of thing. So go through that. Protect your data by keeping it in using open source formats as much as possible. Store keep the primary copies locally. Now, back up in the cloud, that sort of thing. But make sure you always have local copies of things, because again, if you have a cloud subscription, if anything should happen to that subscription, you lose access to your data. So make sure you have your data locally. Avoid platforms that lock your content behind paywalls or DRM. Evernote. That's what finally drove me away from Evernote, frankly, was when they changed ownership, and it just became an onerous duty to even get anything out of Evernote at that point. So so that's
and that's becoming this is becoming not just a digital issue anymore, but it's becoming a physical, like we were talking about with the Switch. But if your thing connects to the internet, there's a good likelihood that you don't actually own it. So figure out where you can disconnect it from and still use it.
Right. And then support right to repair and digital ownership laws. Is find out what's active in your local legislatures or in Congress. Sure, lots of our congressmen have been fully bought and paid for. They're actually owned, not subscribed to by the companies. But in any case, they'll sometimes listen to us if enough of us speak up. And so the right to repair laws, digital ownership laws, become aware of it. And maybe we should find some resources. But iFixit is a company that has become very vocal about right to repair. They're a great company. They're a great website. They have lots of information about repairing your devices. But they're also very active in lobbying for right to repair, and the Electronic Frontier Foundation too.
100% support them. Get involved wherever you can. Anything that you can do. They have a lot of good resources about where to take action, what to take action on. and they're a really interesting group too, because they are pushing for a lot of things that doing things the right way. So where we can use technology to improve our lives, making sure that we do it the right way rather than just kind of slapping a sticker on it and saying, "Oh, it's digitized now."
Right. Yep. And be vocal with the companies that when you see a company behaving badly, don't just wave it away, don't ignore it. Be vocal in social media or wherever, or directly to them. Send an email to the company's president, Tim at apple.com, if you have a problem with Apple, or Sergey at google.com, or I don't know, but I'm sure it's out there. But
Bowser at nintendo.com, which is so ironic and wonderful.
It's funny in Nintendo. It's speaking of a company that's been around a long time. Just a trivia: Nintendo was founded the same year the Eiffel Tower was put up in Paris.
Yeah,
1889.
Yeah, because they were like a card company before they were. They were before they got into the games.
They were not making Super Mario Brothers back then. In any case, I think that should do it for this discussion. I mean, we've talked about 55 minutes on this, and so I'm sure there'll be more to be said in the future. And we certainly would love to get your feedback, your questions, your ideas for how to deal with these things and other concerns. What other tech concerns do we have, and how do we approach them? But again, be a customer, not just a consumer or a user, and insist on being treated like a customer.
Absolutely.
So let's move on to our picks of the week. And Thomas, I'll let you go first. What's your pick this week?
All right. So in the interest of finding a console alternative, because Switch 2 is coming out and my kids are all about gaming on the couch and, being there collectively together. I wanted to make a console for my living room that would be a competitor, at least kind of in that same space. And I was racking my brains about it. I have a desktop that has Linux on it, that has Steam on it, that has my Steam library in it. But I didn't want to just make it the desktop, because then you have to sign in every time and it's a whole thing. And then I would have to set up a separate user to do the Steam big picture and all this kind of stuff. Well, I found out you can actually download the Steam OS, the same OS that's used on the Steam Deck, and put it on a computer. So just like you would install a Linux on a computer, you download the Steam OS, you put it on a USB drive, you boot that up first, and then install it onto that PC. It does have some pretty strict requirements, so you want to make sure that you have enough of a solid video card in there, and some memory set up and everything that you want. It requires an NVMe too, so that's one that might throw some people. So if you're just trying to install it on a standard hard drive or SSD, you want one of the NVMe, which is like the really super fast hard drive that plugs directly into the motherboard. So there are some tech specs that you'll need to make sure you validate before you do it, but it was fantastic. Installed it, it immediately worked. First thing that happens is it comes right up into the Steam OS. It operates just like a Steam Deck. So you've got the big picture. You can use your controller to move around in it. You just get your library downloaded the same way you would on a Steam Deck. But you can expand outside of the Steam Deck too. So some of the things that won't run on Steam Deck because they're just too beefy will actually run on an operating system if you have some better equipment in it.
Interesting, because I noticed like sometimes it says playable but not great for it, that sort of thing.
Exactly.
Is that a hardware capacity aspect of it then? Is that like it's not just enough oomph?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Is that the deck just doesn't have enough in it, and if you've got a system that has enough in it, it will run some of these things.
Yeah, I was asking you this before, but some of the listeners may have the same question: is why not just build a Windows or Linux PC and install Steam on it like you would normally?
You definitely could, but what you're going to find is what I found, that you have to wrestle with: how do I get that user to automatically boot without a password, and how do I get Steam to start up in big picture mode automatically? With this, I turn it on and it goes right into the Steam OS. So it boots and it's right into the Steam operating system, into the big picture. It feels just like a console. So it's just like loading up my Nintendo console, and operates the same way.
Okay. And then you don't got to worry about all the other PC stuff
Exactly.
Like you can always get out of the Steam OS and into a Linux prompt, Linux desktop, even on the Steam Deck. But you don't have to. You don't have to, but you could, and you could just do regular, desktop-y things with it.
If you want to install Glorious Eggroll Proton instead of the default, that's the so yeah, and so you absolutely do have a desktop out of it. And the way I ended up doing it was I have a dual boot, so it boots automatically into the SteamOS. But if I want to interrupt that and go into a desktop version, I can do that as well. Or I can just jump out of the SteamOS, and the Linux version that's running underneath it is Kubuntu, which is really good. It's a really great system anyway by itself. A lot of it is already optimized for gaming, and that's the other part of it, where you don't have to do any of that fiddling with getting the right drivers or anything. That's already done for you.
Right. Any idea what like a basic, a decent PC built to those specs would cost? Like, what's the range we're talking about? I'm assuming the video card would be the most expensive bit.
Video card's the most expensive, but you're only looking like a Radeon 8500, and so it's not too terribly bad. You can probably get away because Radeon 8500 is a little bit older technology, so you can probably get away with around what it would cost you to to buy one of these consoles out of the box. Okay. And SteamOS is free, so
yeah, right. Yeah, I think the Steam Deck's still like around $500 or $600 right now. So
right. I could probably I'll put something together. I'll put a PC parts picker together, cheapest version I could build for it, and I'll throw it into the show notes once I get that done. Okay,
yeah, good idea, excellent. Well, good pick. That's an interesting idea, because the original Steam Deck is getting a little long in the tooth, tech wise, spec wise. So maybe this is a way to keep going on that, although not portable unless you get a laptop. Anyway. So my pick of the week is actually a listener, one of our YouTube listeners piped up my request from last week. My pick was an app called Mercury Weather, and one of the things I said what I wish it did that it didn't do was it gave me the weather as I travel, so along a route of travel. If I'm driving on a trip somewhere, I want to know what the weather's gonna be like when I get there, but I kind of want to know the weather between here and there while I'm on the road. Well, this user, I think it was USMC on YouTube, and I'm not sure. Sorry, I didn't save it, but no, Flying Car 100. Sorry, Flying Car 100, because now I remember. Suggested weather on the way. Now this is an iOS app, but they promise an Android app is coming. So, but given what we just talked about hype and over promising, don't buy things based on that. But what it does is it gives you road conditions, weather along your route, and you tell it when you're starting, where you're going. It calculates, based on current traffic conditions, where you will be at different spots, and will tell you what the weather will be at those spots as you travel. It will tell you the best time to leave. It will it knows everything about those weather conditions. Now, the basic functions are free. There are various subscription models. There's an annual model. There's a one-time model. There's a monthly model. If you only need this for like on vacations, then the monthly model might be good. So you just buy a month and then cancel it. But like they said, they have a lot of their users are truck drivers who this would be a godsend for them. Long haul truck drivers. This would be great. And so they get the pro version, which is, what do they say, $20 a year. That's not a lot of money, I mean, frankly. But they have, let's see where it's raining, live rain radar, best time to leave, NOAA alerts. You can set stop points. You can ask Siri for the weather ahead. So you can request what's the weather in such and such, or when we get here. Know the weather at your destination. Of course, that would be basic. So it looks, I haven't had a chance to put it into practice. I haven't gone on a trip yet, but this looks like the real deal. It's got a lot of good reviews. It was featured on the App Store at one point for in a roundup of weather apps. So it looks like a pretty good thing. So if this is something you're looking for, this might be the app for you. But I love the creativity and thinking, like just the idea of like weather, knowing the weather now is great, but what will the weather be when I get there? Because I've had that happen where I'm like, oh yeah, the road looks clear and sunny the whole way, but that's because it's now. In 5 hours when I get there at this spot, it's going to be blowing sideways.
Right.
So excellent. So those are our picks of the week, and that is our show 300, which really. Very happy to say that. So we'd love to get your feedback on any part of our discussion, which you can do by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/technology or the StarQuest Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. Send an email to technology@sqpn.com. Visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/Discord. You can find links from our discussion and our picks of the week on our show notes at starquest.fm/TEC 300. Remember to like each episode of The Secrets of Tech wherever you find it on social media, on Facebook, retweet it on X, where we're at SQPN, and leave us comments. So until next time, Thomas Sanjurjo, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of technology.
It's been great.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Technology on StarQuest. Here's another show on the StarQuest network you're sure to enjoy, The Secrets of Middle-earth. Find it wherever you can find podcasts or at sqpn.com/Middle-earth.